The silver ships appeared without warning at the edge of the solar system. There were hundreds of them, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. They moved in perfect formation, blocking out the stars as they drifted closer to Earth. Admiral Hyun stood on the bridge of the military station orbiting Mars. His hands were steady as he watched the screens. Around him, officers moved quickly between their stations. Everyone was quiet. Everyone was waiting. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," said Lieutenant Minho. "It's broadcasting on every frequency, radio, television, internet. Everyone on Earth is seeing this right now." Hyun nodded. "Put it through." The screen filled with an alien face. It had 4 eyes and skin that looked like polished stone. When it spoke, the words came through in perfect English, though the mouth movements didn't match. "Primitive beings of Earth," the alien said. Its voice was cold and formal. "I am Counselor Vexithar of the Galactic Unity Council. We have come to bring your species into our civilization. You will surrender all military forces immediately. You will accept our guidance. You will obey our laws." The alien paused, as if waiting for the weight of its words to sink in. "We have done this 847 times before. 847 species now live in peace under our protection. We are giving you 72 hours to respond. If you refuse, we will use force. Resistance is pointless. Every species that has fought us has lost. Accept this truth and surrender." The screen went dark. For a moment, nobody on the bridge spoke. Then Lieutenant Minho cleared his throat. "Sir, what do we do?" Hyun smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had just heard something unbelievable. "We wait for orders from Earth, and we prepare for war." Down on Earth, Dr. Nari Park watched the transmission end. She was in the United Nations building in New York, surrounded by diplomats and scientists. Everyone started talking at once. Some people looked scared. Others looked angry. The Secretary General raised his hand for silence. "We need to respond carefully. This is first contact with an alien species. We cannot act in haste." "They're not asking for contact," said General Ye-jun from his seat near the back. "They're demanding surrender. There's a difference." "But look at their fleet," someone argued. "We can't fight that many ships. We've barely started exploring our own solar system." Dr. Nari stood up. All eyes turned to her. She was young for her position, but everyone respected her work in language and culture. "May I speak?" The Secretary General nodded. "I've studied their message," Nari said. "Not just the words, but how they said them. This council believes we will surrender because everyone else did. They think we're like the others. They expect fear." "We should be afraid," someone muttered. Nari smiled. "Maybe. But here's what they don't understand. Every species they conquered probably lived in peace before they arrived. They probably had unified governments and logical decision-making. They probably thought war was something ancient and terrible." She paused. "We're not like that." "What do you mean?" the Secretary General asked. "We've been fighting each other for our entire history," Nari explained. "We've invented thousands of ways to destroy things. We've survived ice ages, plagues, and almost destroying ourselves with nuclear weapons. We're not a peaceful species that forgot how to fight. We're a species that never stopped fighting." The room was silent. "So what do you recommend?" the Secretary General asked quietly. Nari's smile grew wider. "I recommend we tell them no." The emergency session lasted exactly 47 minutes. Representatives from every nation spoke. Some wanted to negotiate. Others wanted to fight. But in the end, they all agreed on one thing. Earth would not surrender. Admiral Hyun received the message 3 hours later. He read it twice, then called his senior officers to the bridge. "Gentlemen, ladies," he said, "Earth has made its decision. We're going to refuse their ultimatum." Captain Tae Yang, the youngest person in the room, grinned. "Good. I was hoping we'd fight." "It won't be easy," Hyun warned. They have more ships, better weapons, and centuries of experience conquering other planets. But they've never fought humans, said Commander Bora. They don't know what we're capable of. Hyun nodded. Exactly. They're expecting us to be afraid. Instead, we're going to show them something they've never seen before. He looked around at his officers. We're going to show them that humans don't scare easily. The response was prepared carefully. Dr. Nari wrote most of it, with input from diplomats and military advisors. It was polite, but firm. It thanked the Council for their message, but declined their offer. It explained that Earth preferred to remain independent. At the end of the message, the Secretary General appeared on screen. He sat at a large table surrounded by representatives from every nation. He read the response in a calm, clear voice. When he finished, something unexpected happened. Someone in the room laughed. Not a nervous laugh, but a genuine sound of amusement. Then another person laughed, and another. Within seconds, the entire room was filled with laughter. The camera kept recording. It showed hundreds of Earth's leaders, from every country and culture, laughing together. Not because they thought the situation was funny, but because the idea that they would simply give up was ridiculous. The message was broadcast to the alien fleet. On the Council flagship, Vexthar watched the human response with confusion. His advisors stood around him, equally puzzled. They're laughing, said one advisor. Why are they laughing? Perhaps they don't understand the seriousness of our threat, suggested another. Vexthar's 4 eyes narrowed. Or perhaps they're too primitive to realize they're doomed. He turned to his military commander. Prepare a demonstration. Destroy one of their orbital stations. Something small. Let them see what happens to those who refuse us. Yes, Counselor, the commander said, bowing. But as the commander left to prepare the attack, Vexthar felt something strange. In all his years of bringing species into the Council, none had ever responded like this. None had ever laughed. Maybe, he thought, these humans were different. But different didn't mean dangerous. They were still primitive. They still had no chance. He pushed the doubt from his mind. The Council had conquered 847 species. 848 would be no different. On Mars Station, Admiral Hyun watched the alien fleet begin to move. They were coming closer. Soon they would enter weapons range. All ships, prepare for combat, he ordered. And someone put on some music, something loud, something human. As alarms began to sound and ships powered up their weapons, rock music started playing through the station's speakers. Hyun smiled. The aliens wanted to scare humanity. Instead, humanity was going to teach them something important. Never threaten someone who has nothing left to lose, and never ever underestimate a species that greets war with laughter. The Council sent their drones first, small automated ships designed to scan Earth's defenses and gather information. They expected the humans to hide or panic. Instead, something else happened. Captain Taeyang spotted the first drone near Jupiter's orbit. His ship, the Horizon's Edge, was fast and light, perfect for hunting. Target locked, said his co-pilot, Ensign Daeho. Should we destroy it? No, Taeyang said with a grin. Let's catch it instead. The drone tried to run when it detected the human ship approaching. But Taeyang was a better pilot. He used Jupiter's gravity to slingshot around the planet, cutting off the drone's escape route. Within minutes, they had it trapped in their cargo bay. Mars Station, this is Horizon's Edge, Taeyang reported. We have a present for you. Admiral Hyun smiled when he heard. Bring it in. Let's see what our new friends are made of. By the time the sun set on Earth that day, humanity had captured 17 Council drones, not destroyed, captured. Each one was taken to research facilities around the world. Dr. Nari stood in a laboratory in Seoul, watching engineers take apart one of the alien machines. The room was full of scientists, all talking excitedly as they examined the technology. "Look at this power source," said one engineer. "It's incredibly efficient." "And their computer systems," said another. "The code is complex, but we can read it." Dr. Yuna, the facility's head engineer, was already sketching designs on a tablet. She was young but brilliant, known for solving problems in unusual ways. "If we can understand how their engines work, we can build something similar. Maybe something better." "How long?" Dr. Nari asked. Yuna looked up, her eyes bright with excitement. "Give me 12 hours. I'll have a working prototype." Nari felt a chill. "That fast?" "Their technology is advanced," Yuna explained, "but it's not complicated. They've been using the same designs for centuries. They stopped innovating." She smiled. "We haven't." On the Council flagship, Councillor Vexithar received troubling news. "All 17 reconnaissance drones have been captured," his military advisor reported. "Not destroyed, captured." "How is that possible?" Vexthar demanded. "Those drones are faster than anything these primitives should have." "We're not sure, Counselor, but there's more. Our long-range sensors detected unusual activity on their planet. They're taking the drones apart." Vexthar felt his throat tighten. "Can they learn anything useful?" "Unlikely. Their technology is centuries behind ours." But the advisor didn't sound certain, and that uncertainty made Vexithar uncomfortable. "Send a demonstration force," he ordered. 12 warships. Have them destroy one of the humans' outer settlements, something far from their homeworld. Let them see what real power looks like. War Master Korleth led the demonstration force personally. He was old, experienced, and had fought in over 200 campaigns. He had seen every type of defense, every tactic, every strategy, or so he thought. The 12 Council warships entered the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Intelligence suggested humans had mining operations there. It would be an easy target. "Scanners are picking up human activity," reported his tactical officer. "Multiple facilities. Some appear to be military outposts." "Destroy them," Korleth ordered. "Make it quick." The warships began firing their energy weapons. Bright blue beams cut through space, striking asteroids where humans had built their bases. Explosions bloomed in the darkness. Then something unexpected happened. The asteroids started firing back. "Evasive maneuvers!" Korleth shouted as a massive chunk of metal flew past his ship. "What was that?" "It appears to be a mining drill," his officer said, sounding confused. "They're launching mining equipment at us." More projectiles came, old satellites modified with small engines, containers filled with rocks and metal scraps. Even a broken shuttle that had been converted into a missile. It was crude. It was primitive. It was also effective. One of Korleth's ships took a direct hit from a container full of metal debris. The shrapnel tore through its shields and damaged the hull. Another ship was struck by what appeared to be an old nuclear warhead, detonated remotely. "They're using junk as weapons!" an officer exclaimed. "Fall back!" Korleth ordered. "Regroup and—" The asteroids themselves began to move. Humans had attached engines to them. Massive rocks, each weighing millions of tons, were being pushed directly at the Council ships. "This is impossible," Korleth whispered. "Who weaponizes asteroids?" The answer came over the communication channel. A human voice, speaking in accented but clear Council language. "Hello there. This is Colonel Doyen. Welcome to our mining belt. We hope you enjoy your stay." Then human ships appeared from behind the asteroids. Small, fast, covered in improvised armor. They swarmed the Council vessels like angry insects. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it ended, all 12 Council ships were destroyed. The humans lost 17 fighters and 2 mining stations. But they won. Korleth's escape pod was recovered by a human vessel. Captain Tai Yang personally pulled him aboard. "You fight without honor," Korleth said, his translator making his words sound bitter. Tai Yang shrugged. "We fight to win. There's no honor in losing." That night, Korleth was returned to the Council fleet under a flag of truce. He immediately requested a meeting with Vexthar. "You must call off this invasion," Korleth said urgently. "These humans are dangerous." "We lost 12 ships," Vexthar replied coldly. "An acceptable loss." "It's not about the ships." Korleth pulled up a holographic display. "I spent the last 6 hours studying human history. Look at this." The display showed a timeline of Earth. Wars, thousands of them, big and small, ancient and modern. Humans fighting humans over and over again. "They've been in constant conflict for their entire existence," Korleth explained. "They've created tens of thousands of different weapons. They've survived multiple extinction events. They've almost destroyed themselves several times and always came back stronger." He pulled up another image. "This is from something they call World War II. In just 6 years, they killed over 70 million of their own kind. 6 years. 70 million. Vexthar stared at the numbers. That's impossible." "Why would they kill so many of their own?" "Because that's what they do," Korleth said quietly. "They fight. It's in their nature. And now we've given them a common enemy." "We've conquered 847 species," Vexthar said, but his voice lacked confidence. "Surely. Those species lived in peace," Korleth interrupted. "They had to remember how to fight. Humans never forgot. They refined it, perfected it, made it an art form." He leaned forward. "Counselor, I have fought for 2 centuries. I have never been afraid before, but I am afraid now." Vexthar stood silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. "Prepare the main fleet. We will commit 300 warships. These humans will learn that the Council does not back down." Korleth bowed his head. He had tried to warn them. They wouldn't listen. Just like the humans had predicted. Back on Earth, Dr. Yuna presented her new designs to Admiral Hyun. They were based on the captured drones but improved. Faster, more maneuverable, armed with weapons the Council had never seen. "Can you build them in time?" Hyun asked. "We already started," Yuna said with a smile. "Factories on 3 continents are working around the clock. We'll have 500 ready within a week." Hyun looked at the designs. "They're so small. Will they be effective?" "The Council builds big ships because they fight other big ships," Yuna explained. "But we're not going to fight fair. We're going to swarm them, overwhelm them, make them afraid." "Good," Hyun said, "because they're sending more ships. A lot more." Dr. Nari entered the room, carrying a tablet. "Admiral, you need to see this. We've been intercepting Council communications. They're worried. Actually, worried." "About us?" Hyun asked. "About what we might do next," Nari said. "They've never fought anyone like us before. They don't know our limits because we don't have any." Hyun allowed himself a small smile. The Council had demanded surrender. Earth had laughed. Now the Council was beginning to understand why. The Council's main fleet arrived like a storm. 300 warships, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy a city. They moved in perfect formation, advancing slowly toward Earth's moon. Fleet Admiral Jiho watched them from the bridge of humanity's flagship, the Defiance. Around him, dozens of screens showed the approaching enemy. The numbers were overwhelming. But Jiho had fought in wars before. He knew that numbers weren't everything. "All ships, report status," he ordered calmly. Across the solar system, human vessels responded. Battleships near Earth, carriers hiding behind the moon, hundreds of small fighters waiting in the shadows, and scattered throughout the area, Engineer Yuna's new creations, tiny fast ships that looked more like missiles than spacecraft. Enemy fleet is entering weapons range, reported Lieutenant Soman. They're targeting Luna Base. Jiho nodded. The moon base was important, but it was also heavily defended. Let them come. Spring the trap when they get close. On the Council flagship, Vexthar watched the human defenses with contempt. They have so few ships. This will be over quickly. War Master Korleth stood beside him, silent. He had warned them. They hadn't listened. Now they would learn. All ships, open fire on the moon base, Vexthar commanded. Blue energy beams lanced through space. They struck the lunar surface, carving deep into the rock. Explosions bloomed across the moon's gray face. Human installations disappeared in clouds of dust and debris. Direct hits, an officer reported. The base is still there, Korleth said quietly, pointing at the screen. The dust cleared. The moon base was damaged but still standing. Its shields had absorbed most of the attack, and now it was firing back. Massive railguns built deep into the moon's crust launched projectiles at incredible speeds. Simple metal rods, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. The Council's energy shields, designed to stop energy weapons, did nothing against solid matter moving that fast. The first rod punched through a Council warship like paper. The ship exploded from the inside, its reactor overloading. "Evasive maneuvers!" Vexthar shouted. "Return fire!" But the moon wasn't the only problem. From behind the lunar surface, human fighters appeared, hundreds of them. They moved in chaotic patterns, impossible to predict. Each one was piloted by a human, and humans didn't follow logical attack routes. Pilot Minji led her squadron directly at the Council's command ship. Her fighter was small and fast, built for speed over armor. The controls felt natural in her hands. She had been flying since she was 16, first in simulators, then in real aircraft. Now she was flying in space, and it felt like freedom. "Break formation," she ordered her squadron. "Pick your targets and make it count." The Council expected coordinated attacks. Instead, each human pilot fought differently. Some came in straight. Others spiraled. A few flew upside down, just to confuse the enemy targeting systems. Minji targeted a large cruiser. Its shields were strong, but she had studied the captured drones. She knew where the weak points were. She dove under the ship where the shield generators couldn't reach and fired a missile directly into its engine. The cruiser listed to one side, powerless. "That's one," Minji said into her comm. "Who wants to make it a contest?" "Already got two," replied another pilot. The channel filled with laughter. On the Defiance, Admiral Jiho activated the second part of his plan. "Operation Hornet's Nest is go. Release the swarm." Yuna's small ships launched from hidden positions all around the battlefield. There were thousands of them. Each one was barely larger than a car, carrying a single pilot and a payload of explosives. The Council's ships tried to shoot them down, but there were too many. They came from every direction at once. Some were destroyed, but others got through. They slammed into Council vessels, detonating on impact. It was crude. It was brutal. It was working. "We're losing ships faster than predicted," an officer reported to Vexthar. "The humans are using suicide tactics." "Not suicide," Korleth corrected grimly. "Look closer. Those small ships have ejection systems. The pilots escape before impact." Vexthar stared in horror. They're treating this like a game?" As if to answer him, a human voice came over the open channel. 10 points for a cruiser, 20 for a battleship. Who's winning?" The Council forces had never encountered anything like this. They were trained for organized fleet combat. Ships in formation, proper tactics, honor in battle. The humans had none of that. They fought like wild animals, attacking from every angle, using every trick they could think of. Scientist Seojun watched the battle from Earth, making calculations. He had spent the last week working on a project so dangerous that most of his colleagues refused to help. But Seojin understood something important. In war, there were no rules except winning. "Admiral Jiho," he said into his comm, "the weapon is ready." "What weapon?" Jiho asked. "Something the Council banned centuries ago," Seojin replied. "They considered it too dangerous. Too barbaric." "Perfect," Jiho said. "Fire when ready." The weapon was simple in concept, a nuclear explosion, contained and directed through a special lens, creating a laser beam of incredible power. The Council had outlawed them after a war that nearly destroyed one of their member species. Humans didn't care about Council laws. The beam lanced through space, invisible until it struck its target. A Council battleship simply stopped existing. One moment it was there. The next it was expanding gas and debris. "What was that?" Vexithar screamed. "What kind of weapon?" "Nuclear-pumped laser," Korleth said quietly. "Forbidden under the Council Accords. Banned for 800 years. They can't use that. It's illegal." "They're not part of the Council," Korleth reminded him. "They don't follow our laws." The battle raged for 3 weeks. The Council's superior numbers meant nothing when humans refused to fight by the expected rules. They used the moon's gravity to slingshot missiles at impossible angles. They hid inside debris fields and ambushed passing ships. They even broadcast fake surrender signals, only to attack when the Council ships lowered their shields. Every dirty trick humanity had invented over thousands of years of warfare was used. The Council had experience conquering peaceful civilizations. They had no experience fighting a species that had spent its entire existence perfecting the art of war. On Earth, Dr. Yunji watched the battle and studied the Council's communications. She was a biologist, not a soldier, but she understood behavior. And the Council's behavior was changing. "They're afraid," she told Dr. Nari. "Look at the stress markers in their language patterns. Their morale is breaking." "Can we use that?" Nari asked. Yunji smiled. "Already working on it." She prepared a broadcast. It showed footage from the battle, edited to highlight every Council defeat, every ship destroyed, every retreat, every moment of human victory. Then she added something else. Casualty numbers. The Council had been lying to their member species. They had claimed minimal losses. Yunji's broadcast showed the truth. The Council had lost over 200 ships in just 3 weeks. She broadcasted on every frequency she could find, directed at every Council species. For the first time, the subject species of the Council learned that they could resist, that the Council could be beaten. Riots began on Council worlds. Species that had been conquered decades ago suddenly remembered what freedom felt like. Vexthar watched his empire begin to crumble. The human war was supposed to be simple, quick, easy. Instead, it had become a nightmare. "Pull back," he ordered. "We need to regroup." "That will look like retreat," an advisor warned. "It is retreat," Vexthar snapped. "These humans are insane. They're losing more ships than us, and they're still laughing." It was true. Intercepted human communications were full of jokes, music, and laughter. They were enjoying themselves, fighting a war against an overwhelming enemy, and they were having fun. "One more thing," Korleth said quietly. He pulled up a video file. It showed pilot Minji, broadcasting from her fighter during the battle. She was grinning. "Hey, Council Fleet," she said in the video. "Thanks for the target practice. This is way more fun than our simulators. Please send more ships. We're just getting warmed up." Then she blew a kiss at the camera and went back to shooting down Council fighters. Vexithar closed his eyes. They had made a terrible mistake. They had threatened a species that didn't know how to be afraid, a species that treated war like a sport, a species that got more dangerous the harder you pushed them. "Request reinforcements from the home fleet," he said finally. "All of them." "Sir, that's 1,000 ships. Are you sure?" "I'm sure," Vexthar interrupted. "Because if we don't crush them now, with everything we have, we never will." Admiral Jiho received the intelligence about the incoming reinforcements and smiled. Good. I was worried this would be too easy. The Council's full armada arrived like an iron fist, 1,000 warships, representing the combined military might of 847 conquered species. They filled the space around Earth's solar system, their formation stretching millions of kilometers. On Earth, people watched the sky with worry. Even the most optimistic military leaders felt their confidence waver. This was different from the previous battles. This was the full might of a galactic empire. But General Ye-jun stood calm in the command center deep beneath Seoul. Around him, screens showed the approaching fleet. His officers looked nervous. He wasn't. "Activate the planetary defense network," he ordered. "Let's show them what we've been building." For months, humanity had been preparing for this moment. While fighting the Council's advance forces, engineers had been working day and night on a secret project. Something the Council didn't know existed. Something they would never expect. Across Earth, massive doors opened in mountains, deserts, and under the ocean. Weapons platforms rose from their hiding places. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Railguns powerful enough to shoot into deep space. Missile batteries armed with nuclear warheads. Laser arrays that drew power directly from Earth's power grid. "My God," whispered an officer. "We turned the entire planet into a fortress." Ye-jun smiled. "We learned from history. Every invasion that succeeded did so because the defenders gave up their home. We're not giving up Earth. If the Council wants it, they'll have to take it 1 meter at a time." In orbit, Captain Sora prepared her ship for the most dangerous mission of her life. The Ghost Protocol was humanity's first true stealth ship, built using technology adapted from the captured Council drones, but improved beyond recognition. "All systems green," reported her small crew. "Stealth field is holding. We're invisible to their scanners." "Take us into the enemy fleet," Sora ordered. "Nice and slow. We have work to do." The Ghost Protocol drifted through the Council armada like a shadow. Ships passed within meters of them, completely unaware. Sora's heart pounded, but her hands were steady. She had volunteered for this mission. She knew the risks. "Target is ahead," said her tactical officer. "The command ship, the big one in the center." Sora studied the massive vessel. It was 10 times larger than any human ship, covered in weapons and shields. "Can you get us close?" "I can get us inside," the officer said with a grin. "Their hangar bay is open." They slipped into the enemy ship like thieves. The hangar was full of alien fighters and equipment. Sora and her team, wearing stolen Council uniforms, walked out of their ship and into the heart of the enemy command. "Remember," Sora whispered to her team, "we're not here to fight. We're here to listen, learn, and plant a gift." The gift was a virus, designed by Earth's best programmers. Not a weapon, something more subtle. It would spread through the Council's communication network, causing small delays, timing errors, making their fleet coordination just a little bit slower. In a large battle, those tiny delays could be fatal. They found a computer terminal and uploaded the virus. It took 30 seconds. Then they walked back to their ship and left the same way they came. The Council never knew they had been there, until the battle started. Vexthar stood on his command bridge, surrounded by officers and advisors. He felt confident for the first time in weeks. With 1,000 ships, he couldn't lose. The humans had maybe 200 vessels. The numbers were impossible to overcome. "All ships, advance," he ordered. "Destroy their orbital defenses first, then bombard the planet. These humans will learn what happens when you defy the Council." The armada moved forward, a wall of ships, each one bristling with weapons. They opened fire together, filling space with enough energy to destroy a small moon. Then Earth's planetary defense network fired back. Thousands of railgun rounds launched simultaneously. Missiles streaked up from the planet's surface. Laser beams, powered by entire cities, cut through the darkness. The Council ships, expecting minimal resistance from a primitive planet, were completely unprepared. "Shields holding," an officer reported, "but the intensity of fire is much higher than expected. How did they build so many weapons?" "They're humans," Korleth said quietly. "Building weapons is what they do best." The battle became chaos. The Council tried to maintain formation, but Sora's virus was already spreading. Commands arrived seconds late. Targeting data was slightly off. Ships that should have been working together were out of sync. Admiral Jiho watched from the Defiance and saw the opening. "All fighters, attack now! Target their command ships!" Pilot Minji led the assault. She had become famous during the previous battles, her face known across both human and Council space. Enemy pilots now targeted her specifically, but that was fine. She was happy to oblige. "Come on, then," she said, diving into the thickest part of the enemy fleet. "Let's dance." Her fighter spun and weaved through the Council formation. She was outnumbered 100-1, but she had something they didn't. Years of flying in Earth's chaotic atmosphere, dodging storms and other aircraft. Space combat was almost easy by comparison. She destroyed 3 enemy fighters in the first minute, 5 more in the second. She was laughing the entire time. "Minji, you're making the rest of us look bad," someone said over the comm. "Then fly better," she replied, looping around a battleship and firing missiles at its engines. The Council fleet tried to adapt, but humans kept changing tactics. One moment they attacked in waves. The next, they scattered and fought individually. They used asteroids as cover, debris as weapons, and their own damaged ships as decoys. Dr. Yunji's propaganda was also working. She broadcast constant updates to every Council species, showing their fleet being torn apart by a planet that had only just discovered space travel. The message was clear. If humans could do this, anyone could. More riots broke out on Council worlds. Some species openly declared independence. The Council's empire was fracturing. Vexthar watched his fleet dissolve into chaos. 700 ships destroyed or damaged. His commanders were panicking. His crew was terrified, and through it all, he could hear human voices on the open channels, laughing and joking like this was a game. "Fall back," he ordered finally. "All ships, retreat to defensive positions." "Sir, that will—" "I know what it will mean," Vexithar snapped. "But if we stay here, they'll destroy us all." The Council fleet began to withdraw. It should have been organized. Instead, Sora's virus caused more confusion. Ships collided with each other. Some jumped to faster-than-light speed in the wrong direction. The retreat became a rout. Human forces pursued them, hitting them again and again as they fled, not to destroy them all, but to make sure they remembered this moment, to make sure they understood what happened when you threatened Earth. As the surviving Council ships limped away, Vexthar stood alone on his bridge. Around him, officers worked frantically to salvage what remained of the fleet. He had started with 1,000 ships. Now he had barely 300 functional vessels. "Counselor," Korleth said quietly, "we need to discuss terms." "Terms?" Vexthar laughed bitterly. "We came here to accept their surrender. Now you want to surrender to them?" "I want to survive," Korleth said. "These humans won't stop. They can't stop. They've spent their entire history fighting. To them, this is normal. To us, this is a nightmare." Vexthar looked at the screens showing Earth, that small blue planet that should have been an easy conquest, that world full of warriors who treated war like entertainment. "Contact the human leadership," he said finally. "Request negotiations." On Earth, President Junho received the message. He sat in his office with Admiral Jiho, Dr. Nari, and other senior leaders. They had won. Against impossible odds, they had won. "Should we accept their surrender?" someone asked. "Not surrender," Junho said slowly. "Negotiation. There's a difference. He looked around the room. We didn't fight this war to become conquerors. We fought it to stay free. Now we need to make sure this never happens again. Dr. Nari nodded. We need to change the council itself, make it into something better, something that respects all species. Can we do that? Jiho asked. Junho smiled. We just defeated 1,000 warships with guts and creativity. I think we can handle some politics. High Counselor Zephyron, the true leader of the council, had watched the battle from the capital world. He was old, much older than Vexthar, and he understood what the younger counselor did not. The humans hadn't just won a battle. They had changed everything. The council's authority was based on fear and overwhelming force. The humans had shown that both could be overcome. Send a message to Earth, he told his advisors. Tell them I will meet with their leaders personally. It's time to discuss a new future for the galaxy. And for the first time in 800 years, the council prepared to negotiate as equals instead of conquerors. The peace negotiations took place on a neutral space station between Earth and the council's capital world. High Counselor Zephyron arrived with a fleet of guards and advisors. President Junho arrived with Dr. Nari and Admiral Jiho. No weapons were allowed in the meeting room, but everyone knew humans didn't need weapons to be dangerous. Zephyron studied the human leaders carefully. They looked so ordinary. Soft skin. Small bodies. No natural armor or claws. Yet they had done what no species had done in 8 centuries. They had made the council afraid. Thank you for agreeing to meet, Zephyron said through his translator. He was old enough to remember when the council actually served its members instead of ruling them. I believe we have much to discuss. Junho nodded. We do. Let's start with the important part. Your empire is dying, Counselor. You know this, yes? Zephyron's advisors shifted uncomfortably, but he raised a hand to silence them. I do. Your Dr. Yunji's broadcasts have been very effective. 17 species have declared independence in the last month. More will follow. Good, Junho said simply. They should be free. You could have destroyed our remaining fleet, Zephyron observed. Why didn't you? Admiral Jiho answered. Because we're not conquerors. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We just want to be left alone. But we also don't want other species to suffer under your rule. So what do you propose? Zephyron asked. Dr. Nari placed a document on the table. The Terran reforms? We've spent the last month working on this with representatives from several council species. They contacted us secretly asking for help. Zephyron read the document slowly. His eyes widened as he went through each point. The reforms were radical. Complete restructuring of the council. Democratic representation for all species. Reduction of military forces. Rights and freedoms for every member. This would change everything, he said quietly. The council as we know it would cease to exist. The council as a dictatorship would end, Nari corrected. But a real council, one that actually represents its members, would begin. Isn't that what it was supposed to be? Zephyron was quiet for a long moment. You know our history? We studied it, Nari said. The council started as a genuine partnership between 3 species, but over time it became something else, something darker. You gained power and never let it go. And you think you can fix centuries of corruption? Asked one of Zephyron's advisors skeptically. Junho smiled. We just beat your entire military with mining equipment and nuclear weapons. Yes, we think we can handle some political reform. The negotiations lasted 3 days. Some of the council's representatives were hostile, others were desperate. A few were genuinely interested in change, but in the end, the choice was simple. Reform or watch the empire collapse completely. On the 3rd day, Zephyron made his decision. I will support your reforms, he said. Not because I want to, but because I must. The old ways are dead. You humans killed them. He looked at Junho with something like respect. I underestimated your species. We all did. We saw primitive technology and assumed primitive minds. We were wrong. Very wrong, Admiral Jiho agreed with a slight smile. But I have one question, Zephron continued. Why did you laugh? When we first demanded your surrender, your entire leadership laughed. Why? Junho leaned back in his chair. Because the idea of humanity surrendering without a fight is funny. We've spent 10,000 years fighting each other, fighting nature, fighting extinction. Fighting is what we do. When you told us to give up, it was like telling fish not to swim. We couldn't help but laugh. Dr. Nari added, and we also knew something you didn't. Every species you conquered probably had peaceful societies. They had to remember how to fight. We never forgot. We practice warfare like other species practice art. You threatened the one species in the galaxy that was born ready for war. Zephron nodded slowly. I think I understand now. You are not warriors who happen to be human. You are humans who happen to be warriors. It's your nature. Exactly, Junho said. And now you get to be our friends instead of our enemies. Trust me, we're much better as friends. The Terran reforms were presented to the full council 3 weeks later. The vote was close. Many species wanted to maintain the old system, but 85 species voted in favor. The reforms passed. The galaxy changed overnight. Species that had been conquered decades ago suddenly had voting rights. Military forces were reduced across council space. Democratic processes replaced authoritarian rule. It wasn't perfect. Nothing involving politics ever was. But it was better. And Earth, the newest member of the galactic community, was at the center of it all. Admiral Jiho was invited to the Council Military Academy to teach strategy and tactics. He accepted on the condition that his teachings would never be used against peaceful species. I'll teach you how to fight, he told the first class of alien cadets. But first, I'll teach you when not to fight, because humans have learned that lesson the hard way, many times. Pilot Minji also became an instructor. Her classes were always full. Young aliens from dozens of species wanted to learn from the human who had laughed in the face of death and won. Flying is about freedom, she told her students. The moment you're afraid, you've already lost. So don't be afraid. Enjoy it. Love it. Make it yours. Engineer Yuna shared human technology with council scientists. Some were amazed, others were horrified. You weaponized asteroids, one alien engineer said in disbelief. You turned mining equipment into missiles. You broke every rule of civilized warfare. Yuna shrugged. We didn't know there were rules, and even if we did, we would have broken them anyway. Rules are for people who can afford to lose. We couldn't. Dr. Yunji founded the first Interspecies Psychology Institute. Species from across the galaxy came to learn how to understand each other better. Her first lesson was always the same. Never assume you know how another species thinks. Never assume your way is the only way. And never, ever threaten someone without understanding what makes them dangerous. 10 years passed. The galaxy was more peaceful than it had been in centuries. The council, now truly democratic, resolved disputes through negotiation instead of force. Species that had been enemies became trading partners. Wars still happened, but they were rarer and shorter. Earth had become a beacon of hope for species seeking freedom. But humans had also learned something important. Power came with responsibility. Captain Taeyang, now promoted to fleet commander, led the first joint exploration mission into uncharted space. His crew included humans, but also aliens from 24 different species. They worked together, exploring new worlds and making first contact with species beyond Council space. On the hull of his flagship, he had painted Earth's new motto, "We laughed. Did you learn why?" President Junho, now retired, sat in his garden and watched the news. The galaxy was changing, growing, becoming something better, and Earth had helped make it happen. Dr. Nari visited him that afternoon. She was older now, her hair streaked with gray, but her eyes were still sharp. "Do you think we did the right thing?" she asked, sitting beside him. Junho smiled. "We stood up to tyrants. We fought for freedom. We helped create a better galaxy. Yes, I think we did the right thing." "The council sent their demands," Nari said. "We responded with laughter. History will remember that." "Good," Junho said. "Let them remember. Let every species in the galaxy know that freedom is worth fighting for, and let them know that humans will always defend it." Far away, on the Council's capital world, High Counselor Zephyron also reflected on the past decade. He was very old now, near the end of his life. His species lived much longer than humans, but even they eventually aged. He had lived through the transformation of the Council from empire to democracy. He had seen war and peace. He had witnessed the rise of humanity from primitive newcomers to galactic power. "What do you think of them?" his successor asked one day. "The humans?" Zephyron considered the question carefully. "They are dangerous," he said finally. "More dangerous than any species I've ever known. They can create or destroy with equal skill. They can be gentle or brutal, depending on need." "Should we fear them?" "No," Zephyron said. "We should respect them. Fear makes enemies. Respect makes allies. The humans taught us that lesson. It cost us dearly, but we learned it." He looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth orbited its yellow sun, that small blue world that had changed everything. "The humans laughed when we threatened them," Zephyron said. "At the time, I thought they were fools. Now I understand. They laughed because they knew something we didn't. They knew they would win, not through superior technology or numbers, but through superior will. And now they're our friends," Zephyron said. "And I thank the stars for that, because I would never want to be their enemy again." On Earth, in countless cities and towns, people went about their daily lives. They worked and played and loved and dreamed. They had won a war against an empire. They had changed the galaxy. They had proven that freedom was worth any price. But if you asked them about it, most would just shrug and smile. Because to humans, standing up to tyranny wasn't extraordinary. It was just what you did. It was who they were. The Council had demanded surrender. Earth had responded with laughter, and the galaxy would never be the same.